as a journalist, I can't count the number of times that I have either read or have written or have said or have been told that CSPs remain lumbering behemoths and they need to become fleet of foot. And I don't know whether that's happening or not. You hear various reports from various places. But what I'd like to ask you is this. Are CSPs able to articulate and implement an MEC strategy now that they can see a point in doing and they have an end goal in sight? Or are they doing short-term tactical stuff to launch a few applications and make a few quid or a few dollars? And, well, you've all gone very dumb.
Well, you know, my intelligence left, but you're using the term not speaking. Okay. You know, from my view, I don't think that the entire market is you know, slowed down or behemoth from that manner. There are some comm service providers who move quite quickly, but they've also figured out how they do that. You know, working with partners and how they get that technology in very quickly. I think I heard an example this morning with the Reliance Jio. I don't know if anybody's here from Reliance Jio, but wow, what a fascinating, the entire network they have is virtualized and they added 100 million subscribers in 6 months. That's huge to be able to do that and to turn all that and be able to manage. Now push that all the way out to distributed cloud architecture, that's a different story. And we have a huge challenge, I think, on the development, DevOps side of things to get the comm service providers to move that quickly. I can count probably 5 or 6 in the world, and I won't mention any because I may offend some, who'll be left on that list who can do that. And the rest won't. They just don't have the funds, they don't have the people, they don't have the capability to be able to go off and do that, and they're going to have their partners. You know, and it puts them into a marketing realm of they own the end user, but they really don't understand their own technology, which is really scary when an over-the-top guy knows his technology.
Well, it's not like the whole industry is stuck in Stone Age and is still using Stone Age access. Okay, we are magenta, so maybe our axis would be magenta. But no, we are actually up for laser swords. And, but not the whole industry is leading on the innovation side. And sure, that's good as well for the ones driving technical innovation. And I don't see it bad if the industry at large is a little bit slower. It gives an opportunity as well to the innovation leaders.
Christos, what do you think?
I think they will be forced to come up with a strategy sooner or later. So it's better if you start thinking about it, if you're like a service provider, to start thinking about it, you know, right now, especially with you know, standards efforts going on. Because if you wait to react, it might be too late. As certain companies, when you know, when the cloud happened, for instance, and you have to sort of like catch up. This is a very fast-moving tech world that we live in. So I think it's better if they start planning today, even if you know, the standards are not there yet. I know there's a bunch of a few actually vendors out there that are pursuing that, and I think it's going to be very disruptive, you know, as technology at the end. But as I said, you know, you better start early, you know, sort of coming up with a strategy and doing some planning, and look at the use case that you think that you might be able to monetize on, rather just wait to react until the very late. So when I say there might be forces, because you might have a customer or you may have a partner that says, hey, I want to do that. So you should be ready to, you know, react to this thing. I think the analogy for me personally is like SD-WAN sort of defined wide area networking. That is sort of like emerged as a killer app for SDN and NFV in a way, and now everybody is trying to, you know, react to that. I think MEC might evolve in something like that. I don't know.
I will say, I think the way you asked the question was kind of like, well, do they have a strategy or are they just going to do it tactically? From where I see things, I think most CSPs today do not yet have a fully formed strategy, but they do understand that this is an area that they have to approach strategically, just because of the importance and the size of the investment that's going to be involved and going to be necessary to really get to the end point. So that understanding is there, and I think from what I see, everybody is working towards that strategy. Now that strategy there may be the first few kind of tactical moves that are going to look tactical and opportunistic at the beginning that you're going to see, but I think by and large they're going to be driven by a strategy. Now, as far as the operators being slow behemoths, I mean, I think there is a variety. There's clearly a variety, like in any industry. But I also think every time operators get compared to how fast a Google or an Amazon moves, there's two things that come to my mind. First of all, Microsoft today moves a lot slower than they used to. And for better or worse, that seems to be the natural progression of the life of the companies. They're kind of like people. As they age, they just slow down. But the other aspect of it is the operators have to work in the environment where there's significant brakes on how fast they can move. They have regulations that they have to deal with. They have customer expectations that are completely different than if you're providing content or services over the internet that they have to deal with. And all of those things are drags on how fast you can move in certain things. So I don't think it's necessarily fair to compare the speed of transformation of the operators to what some of the top web players can do. And there are some like Reliance that have shown that they can move really fast in this business when the right opportunities are there.
Let's bring Sanjay, because I want to open it up to the floor in a moment. But Sanjay, a quick final word from you on that question.
Well, first of all, I to the point you were bringing up, everyone needs to have an access at some point, right? Mm-hmm. And that access has to work. So, I mean, who's going to provide that? And if it's not going to be, I mean, as Axel was saying earlier, some of the web scale companies thought, well, why don't we just speed it up by doing it all ourselves and building our own fiber? Okay, seems logical, except they found out that it was, a difficult business, just as difficult as, and they realized, well, maybe it's better to partner and let them take the cost of that, right? So there's this natural segmentation, but that natural segmentation leads to a difference in how you operate the business, because the businesses are actually evaluated differently from a financial perspective, right? A dividend-paying business versus a high-growth business. So they're just different businesses. They operate differently, and that's just the way it is.
Okay, thank you. Let's open it to questions from the floor. I can't see anything. None of us can see anything much up here. But if anyone is down there with questions, please say who you are and where you're from before you ask the question. So, who'd like to start?
Hi, I can start. I'm Ansley Hamer. I'm with Accenture's cybersecurity practice, and I've got some questions as to where Internet of Things and the wireless service CSPs are heading as a whole, not only as a user, but also as somebody who's in the security consulting industry. Where do you think the security is going to play a role? Would it be in the products accessing, or is it going to be more so with the providers? Because right now it's a regulatory almost Wild West when it comes to security protocols. It's a different world out there, and it changes every day, very fast.
So obviously you first, Sanjay.
Yeah, I'll take it. Security is going to play a role everywhere, but I think the area where it's really not been looked at enough is on the devices themselves. There's a lot of people talk about the protocols, say let's make the protocol secure, let's put encryption on it, and let's do all that. Well, no matter how much encryption you put on the protocol, if I can break into the device and change what it's doing, well then I.
How powerful botnets.
Yeah, right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, exactly. So then, why are those devices attacked? Well, what operating system's running on it? Was it something that the developer downloaded off the internet and said, hey, it told his boss that, hey, I'm already done with the project? Or was it something that was thought through and carefully evaluated to a set of specifications, right? And I think those are questions that need to be asked when all of these devices are being developed and built, when these projects are being built. And sometimes not enough of those questions are asked. And you know, honestly, sometimes not enough budgets are being allocated to things like this.
I'll say the top level answer is everywhere. Security has to be done everywhere. I do think that security of the devices, and I'll add when you think about devices, it's the devices out in particular with IoT out in the field, and IoT is especially scary, right? But it's also the devices that run things back in the network, the servers and the storage. And really thinking, I think for a long time, security was being thought of as, well, yes, hey, let me encrypt my protocol. Well, okay, so now we moved on to devices. Well, let me make sure that it's booting properly, right? All of these are kind of cyber security, right? Computer communications security stuff. You really need to start going beyond that. What happens to my device while it's being shipped? If the security is kind of a game of economics, and so if the economics of an attack that can be perpetrated by doing something to the device while it's moving from a factory to its eventual customer is sufficiently high, somebody is going to perpetrate that attack, right? So I think you need to start thinking about security that way. And I think what the other piece that's missing is we've kind of been looking, I think, at security in terms of what can we do to completely stop something. When you think about the way people think about security, you look for anomalous behavior, right? Is somebody doing something really weird? At what point do we start developing intelligence systems that don't replace but complement what we've done already and start saying, well, that's tough. That's tough at the edge. It's just not behaving the right way. I'm going to ignore it, or I'm going to do something else with it. I'm not going to let it perform the action that it is attempting to perform because it's just behaving weirdly. I think all of those pieces are going to have to come together. The more distributed a system is, the more dangerous it becomes to that kind of stuff. So I think MEC being distributed is going to start forcing this kind of stuff. And IoT, as heavily as it relies on MEC, is going to be even more dangerous because now you have distributed, but you also have the economics of the attack goes from I've deleted somebody's data or something to I've crashed an airplane or I've caused a 50-car collision on a highway because they're all self-driving cars and I hacked them.
Yeah. We need to consider we are running in edge computing critical infrastructure and partner applications on the same infrastructure in the future. And that requires new thinking indeed on the security models. Also overall, when we look at things like firewalls, today everything is kind of built on access control lists, old school. And well, if you think about cloud native, which will be used in edge computing, this is not the way which will work anymore. So you need to move to an identity-based system, for example. And where is the industry on that? At square one. So we're not there yet. But this is why security is one of the key focus areas if we want to really be successful with edge computing.
Another question.
This is Ajay from HP. I have a question regarding, we started off saying that we know who the winners are, at least in the US, in the cloud space, right? Mobile edge computing is probably the next frontier for operators. But I'd like to understand from your perspective, what do you think about the fact that operators are local, country specific, and the cloud players are more global brands, if you will? And how does that work for developers? And what do operators think about this? Do they think it's partner to begin with, or are you going to go for it?
I think it's going to be on a case-by-case basis, essentially. So in some application, for some certain things, we're going to maybe look for partners, whether it's on the vendor side or on the application or the software side. So I think it's going to vary. I don't think we're there yet in order to, and that goes back to the question about the strategy and the planning. Maybe, I don't know whether Alex,
well, let me just point out one fact. While the current cloud players are international, when you think about AWS, Google Cloud, et cetera, right? Edge clouds, by definition, are going to be localized. So you don't have that issue.
We're running out of time. We've got time for one more question, though. So if there's one there, we'd be happy to hear it.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Sven, and I'm heavily involved in the universal CPE deployment for some of the service providers. And I'm just curious if are any thoughts on the universal CPE. Typically, you're running multiple VNFs, multiple applications on the same hardware platform. Could you envision that the service provider community sharing edge computing sites to running the same application and sharing these sites throughout the network?
Who would like to answer that one?
Yes.
Yes. Yeah, sure. It's one of the options, and also, if you really think about the money which is required to move towards edge computing, definitely this is one of the possibilities. But again, someone needs to make a move, and it needs to be someone with the proper strategy in the space. It doesn't come out of the blue sky.
Yeah, I think one of the key things for them to open that up is to have a model around as you create applications that can fit into those edge sites. How do you describe the resources that those applications are using? Because there's limited resources, and today our models, our models for describing what a VM is or what a container is, they talk about the CPU and memory usage and storage usage, but they don't talk about the network usage. But then, yet when you talk about MEC, there's a lot of network usage, right? So we've got to evolve those models so that we can
I will just make a point that some of the APIs that MEC has published, they have some of those elements in them.
We've got to get them into the other open source projects.
Okay. Like I said, to build on that last point, though, great question over there, Sven, is that all of those VNFs and being able to share it across, we think very confidently at Intel that we helped to make that happen. It's on an Intel architecture. It's running open OSs that helped it, the APIs that are coming along, all the things from enterprise are coming over. And so I'm sorry if some of you find that arrogant, but we've been working and investing billions of dollars to make that happen. And so it's not an easy thing to drive that into the industry and to see that transition. Because if you can think back, when I first got into comms 20 years ago, it was a very different world. And to be able to think now where we have a flexible software-defined architecture and pooling of resources, whether it's compute, storage, or networking, which is coming, but is the slowest, I have to agree with that. I think that's the way the industry is going. And if it doesn't continue to embrace that, they're going to get left behind. So that software-defined infrastructure and how you work across and put all those VNFs, whether you're moving them onto a phone, which isn't where Intel is, but we want to be, and then all the way back to the cloud. It's a great way to look at how do you take advantage of your software architecture to be able to move across a ubiquitous hardware environment.
Thank you. Now, last thing we're going to do is I want each of you in turn to, in less than a minute, I'll sort of bang on this or hit you across the knees or something, and if you go on too long, just if you would encapsulate for us what you think has, whether or not your mind has been changed on anything from what we've heard today, and where you think multi-access edge computing is now and where it's going to go next. And we may as well start with you, Keith. We'll just go straight along to the end.
I just spoke quite a bit, but
you did, but you can do it again.
I would say that, one, being on this panel and listening to these great experts in this area gives me a lot of hope for the comm service providers. I think they know the challenge. They've got an understanding of where their differentiated value is, what they can take advantage of, and these partnering. I love to hear that term because I think it does move the industry faster, and they don't want to necessarily just hold it to themselves. And so open it up and let the creativity of an open community really expand what you can do on your network.
Good, thank you.
Yeah, it's definitely, right now, edge computing is a great opportunity, and we need to work hard on making it reality. So. Short and sweet, Christos.
Yeah, for me, I view MEC as the edge hanging fruit, if you like. And we, if you're, as I said, we're going to be forced either by, practical application to get into this space, especially if we see some monetization aspects.
Sanjay.
It's going to open up a whole world of opportunity for microservices-based applications, move it beyond theory into real-world applications.
I'll say that from my point of view, for anyone that believes in 5G, and 5G as in the applications that 5G will deliver, you necessarily believe in edge compute. By whatever name you're going to call it, there is going to be compute, Intel-based architecture at the edge delivered in HP boxes. It will be there, otherwise those 5G applications will not be there. I think the challenge for the industry is not whether it will be there, but how we get it there, and how we get it there in a way that makes sense for the industry. And I think I really do think that the parameters or the way this is going to work out has the potential to work out very, very differently than the way cloud has worked out, because the starting point is very different. So I'm kind of excited to see how it plays out.
Gentlemen, thank you very much indeed. I'd just like to say, what a great panel. These people know some stuff. It's been very entertaining. I've enjoyed myself. I hope you have, and I hope you have out there. We can't see, but thank you for being here as well. And would you please show your appreciation in the usual way?